Welcome back, everybody, to the Cleveland Guardians franchise here on MLB The Show 22. We have made it to the offseason here in year number 4. Our season came to an unfortunate end, losing Game 5 of the ALCS in the last episode by the score of 14-6. The offense has been pretty inconsistent throughout the series against Toronto, but I don't think we can fault the offense for this game in particular. Jesus Sanchez went deep 3 times, and 6 runs should be enough to win. But Toronto hit 8 home runs as a team. John Mean struggled. The bullpen really struggled. And of the 6 pitchers who pitched for us in this game, 5 of them finished with ERAs above 7 for the entirety of the playoffs. And our team ERA for the playoffs is right at 7, 6.96. So the offense, I think, was more than good enough throughout the postseason, and obviously our offense was great in the regular season. We had the best lineup in baseball this year. We hit for more average than just about anybody. We hit for more power than just about anybody. And I think the offense is really what won us the first series against the Tigers because of the pitching letting us down. And the pitching has been the problem with this team really throughout the entire season. We won 111 games, and that's not to say the pitching was poor, but in comparison to the offense, the pitching was nowhere near as good. The starting pitching was inconsistent, the bullpen was very inconsistent, and in the playoffs, well, those weaknesses really showed. So as we go into the offseason, obviously I realize that MLB The Show 23 is a few months away, so that means we probably only have a couple more full seasons with this team before the long-term sim, so we've got to make smart decisions that can help us win a World Series within the next season or two, while also being mindful of the long term. This team did win 111 games this year, and last year we won the World Series, so things have certainly been looking up for our organization. I think we have plenty of talent, but we also have a lot of money tied up into our core players. So as we look at the World Series here, we've got the Blue Jays and the Dodgers facing off. Both of these teams have a few of our guys who were on last year's World Series teams. The Blue Jays have Manuel Margot, who hit 2 home runs in Game 5 against us, and the Dodgers have Max Fried. So one of our guys from last year who won a World Series with us is going to win one again. The first 2 games are split. The Blue Jays lose the first and win the second one. The next 3 are also split. The Dodgers and Blue Jays alternating wins. The Dodgers are now ahead 3-2. They've just got to win one more, and they take home Game 6. So the Los Angeles Dodgers have defeated the Toronto Blue Jays for the World Series. Manuel Margot and Trey Turner win the postseason MVPs, while Turner wins the World Series MVP. The Dodgers have now won 3 of the last 4 World Series, with the only one in this series not being won by the Dodgers, of course, being last year when we won it. So that'll bring us to the offseason now. That starts with retirements. Luckily, we have nobody in our organization retiring. There are some notable names around the rest of baseball, guys like Miles Michaelis, Chris Sale, Lorenzo Cain, amongst others, and then some big names in free agency as well. Michael Brantley, longtime member of this organization. He was a great contact hitter for a number of years. A lot of other guys we recognize throughout the series, like Ernie Clement, amongst others, and then some really good veterans in here like Yadier Molina and Max Scherzer as well. Both of those guys undoubtedly deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. Corey Kluber won a Cy Young here in Cleveland, had some great years in this organization. Former MVP Evan Longoria retires. It feels like he's been in the league for like 50 years. A lot of big-time relievers as well. Roberto Perez was in this organization for a while. He was the starting catcher for a number of years. There's Max Scherzer, Justin Turner, Justin Upton. So there you go. Nobody makes the Hall of Fame, which is wild to me. I don't know how Yachty or Scherzer don't get in, but that's neither here nor there. So here's a look at the players who are exclusive rights free agents. These players head into full free agency. Their contracts, their team control is all up, and we already have $124 million tied into the players already on the roster. So we have to be smart with the budget because this is not a team who has a boatload of money to spend like the Yankees and the Dodgers. So Kyle Lewis is here. He's the name that certainly sticks out. He was fantastic for us this year. Did he play well in the playoffs? No, he did not. But Kyle Lewis was one of probably the 5 best players in the American League. I think we'd be foolish not to bring him back. He wants a lot of money for an 82 overall, but I think his best baseball is ahead of him. He's still getting better, so we're going to offer him the qualifying offer along with a 3-year extension for around $57 million. That's $19 per year. I know it's a lot of money for a guy who struggled in the playoffs, but he was so good last year, I don't see how we can justify letting him go. Josh Bell is an interesting case because he's really still improving against righties, but his stats against lefties are falling off like a cliff. We have a team and player option on him. It's a mutual option for $8 million, so both us and him have to accept it for him to come back. We're going to accept the team option portion of it, but he still has to accept it as well, or else he'll be a free agent. Other than that, I don't think we're going to bring anybody else back for right now. Aaron Bummer's not very good. Dansby Swanson is good, but I just don't think it makes sense to give him $9 million per year for a guy who's going to probably be a platoon player again. Yes, Dansby Swanson was phenomenal in the playoffs. He was probably our third best player behind Jose Ramirez and Ketel Marte. And in the 73 games he played, he was really good. But we have a lot of young infielders, and we don't really need him. Ranger Suarez was kind of disappointing, and I just don't think he's worth $10 million. Dylan Tate is a very good player, but I don't know if I want to give him $5 million a year. I think it would make a lot of sense to just reshuffle the bullpen. And then Josh Naylor's a bench bat. That's too much money for a bench bat. We do need some new members of the staff. We're going to offer Joe Girardi to be our pitching coach for 2 years and around $3 million. We're trying to overpay him a little bit because it is a smaller position than being the actual manager. And then we're going to offer Jake Samuel to be the hitting coach for 3 years and $4.2 million. Again, overpaying a little bit to get the guys that we want on the staff. So with that, we can now simulate to the start of free agency as both coaches accept their contracts. Jose Ramirez accepts a player option in his deal, while Josh Bell declines it, making him a free agent. So with Jose Ramirez, we re-signed him to a 3-year deal a couple seasons ago of a player option from the last season for a little bit under $19 million. And he ends up accepting it, which is a surprise because he just won the American League MVP. He could get way more money. I'd be happy to pay him more, but he wants to take one for the team, take a pay cut, so we can re-sign a player like Josh Bell. We're going to do the same thing that we've been doing with him, a 2-year deal for around $8 million with a club and player option. So with that, we have $135 million tied up with Kyle Lewis now accepting his deal. Josh Bell, however, is still a free agent here entering the offseason. He's the only person that we currently have a contract offer to. So before we get to free agency itself, and yes, it is a very talented group, we're going to start with the nitty-gritty of the offseason in terms of contracts from the other players on the roster. We will be adding Eric Pena to the 40-man roster along with Luis Toribio. I don't want to lose either of these players in the Rule 5 draft, so they will be now on the 40-man. Next up, we have salary arbitration for a few guys in the organization. We're going to offer it to Luis Campusano, Ryan Weathers, George Valera, Luis Rengifo, and Alex Vesia. We will not be offering it to Brusdar Graterol. The arbitration for him is around $3.5 million, and he just wasn't all that good after we traded for him. He wasn't very good in the playoffs. Again, I would just rather shift up the guys in the bullpen rather than pay him $3.5 million. Next up, we have the tendering contract stage. We're going to offer Hunter Green a 5-year extension for $50 million, which will cover all of team control and arbitration along with his first year of free agency. And then Alvaro Pena will be getting a 9-year extension, which will cover the first 3 years of his free agency for around $120 million. Everybody else in here will be brought back on a short, cheap contract. All of these guys have less than 3 years of MLB service. Most of these players have never even played in the major leagues. So all of them are being brought back on cheap, mainly minor league contracts. And then the guys in the majors are getting a little bit more money, but not much. They'll get a lot more once they get into arbitration and then obviously free agency. So with that, we have $135 million tied up. That does not include Josh Bell or any of the contracts we just offered. So that's going to be even less money to spend. And it's unfortunate because this is a really, really good free agency class and we don't have a ton of money to spend. We can't go out home run hitting because we don't really have that much money. We need to focus on pitching. We need another starter. We need another player or two for the bullpen. We've got to improve the pitching staff because that's what let us down last year. All of these guys, at least among the starting pitchers, all underperformed compared to their ratings last year. But I still want to sign somebody, so I'm looking for someone who could be cheap, and Dylan Cease is an intriguing option. 2 of his last 3 seasons have been quite bad. Last year, an ERA in the mid-5s, 2023, an ERA in the mid-6s, but he's an 89 overall from a division rival, and he doesn't want that much money. 1 year, $11 million. It's a prove-it deal. If it works out, great. If not, oh well. Amongst the relievers, I want somebody who can eat up a lot of innings, and honestly, that's Dylan Tate. I think there aren't really many better options in here than him because he's been so consistent. I don't want to give him too much money, though. 1 year, $5 million will be the deal that I offer him. But I do want to add some new faces to the bullpen still, and I think Raisel Iglesias could be a really good addition. He is 36 years old, but he's still pitching at a pretty high level. He is regressing pretty quickly, but for only a 1-year deal, I don't see the harm in bringing him in as a veteran leader for the locker room and a guy who's been consistently good. 1 year, about $7.3 million, a little bit less than his asking price, but we don't have the money to really overspend on these guys. So those are going to be our offers for the start of free agency. Dylan Cease, Raisel Iglesias, Dylan Tate, and then Josh Bell. So let's simulate here through the first week or so. Sean Murphy signs with the Cubs, and then after that we get a big one. Yordan Alvarez is a Twin. So he leaves the Astros, which is good because they're a very good team, but now he's in our division, and then Luis Robert signs with Kansas City. So again, he leaves the White Sox, which is good, but he signs with the Royals, which is not good. Zach Wheeler has been traded to the Boston Red Sox, and then other than that, there isn't too much change with our guys. Other than that, Dylan Cease has a better offer from the Dodgers, so we're going to extend his offer to around $11 million rather than $10. Hopefully that'll be enough to sway him. We can no longer afford the contract for Raisel Iglesias. Aaron Brummer, by the way, goes to the Braves. We do sign Dylan Cease, which is good. We also signed Josh Bell as well, but with $163 million tied up, we don't have enough money for Dylan Tate or Raisel Iglesias or Alvaro Pena. We did sign Hunter Green as well, keep in mind, so that adds $10 million per season. So we've got to clear up some money fast. Nick Sandlin has been traded to the Pirates. He's starting to regress a little bit. He's 29 years old, and he was bad in the playoffs in exchange for Derek Ross, a switch-hitting 22-year-old outfielder who's raw but has some upside, and it clears up $2 million, which is the main goal of that trade. Bobby Bradley and Joan Adon are headed to the Blue Jays. I really wanted it to work out with Bobby Bradley, but he's gotten less than 100 at-bats in the last 2 seasons. And, I mean, we just don't need him. Joan Adon's a solid minor leaguer as well, but we're getting a really intriguing player back from the Toronto Blue Jays in shortstop prospect Cash Anderson. He's 23 years old. He can hit the ball really well, so he'll be a nice addition to the farm system while the Blue Jays add a talented first baseman who may need to start for them this year if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. leaves. We've also got to figure out what we're going to do with Alvaro Pena. We don't have to sign him to a monster extension, but I would rather lock him up. JT Realmuto is now in the division. That's fantastic. He signs with the White Sox. Ozzie Albies signs with the Mets. That's something. So 40-man rosters are due. We're not going to make any changes there. We'll just keep simulating forward. As Bo Bichette signs with the Mariners for 9 years. That's a lot of money. And it makes Toronto worse, which is good. David Peterson signs with the Dodgers because they have unlimited money. And now we've got to figure out what we're going to do with Alvaro Pena. December 2nd is the deadline. We do not have enough money to extend him, which, again, is fine. We don't have to. So we're going to offer him a 1-year deal for $90,000 and try to come up with an extension either next season or in the offseason. We don't have to rush it, but I think he's going to end up making more money if we wait longer, so hopefully we can get it done. In terms of free agency, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the hot name. There are some other big guys in here like Nico Horner, Kyle Tucker, Austin Riley, amongst others. But Vladdy Jr. seems to be the guy that teams are really going after for, as Mike Soroka signs with the Royals, so he is now in our division as well. That's not good. And Austin Riley, his Braves teammate, is joining him. So the Royals have signed 2 former MVP winners, Luis Robert and Austin Riley, along with an ace. And then Vlad Jr. signs with the Dodgers for 10 years and $300 million. Wow, lot to take in there. So the Royals signed 2 MVP winners. The Dodgers, who just won the World Series, steal the best player from the team they beat. On the bright side, the Blue Jays are a lot worse, losing Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., so that's good. Their best hitter now is Adalberto Mondesi, who was a platoon guy for them last year, and now he's their best player. In terms of the guys left here, you've still got Nico Horner, Kyle Tucker, Brian Reynolds, Dustin May. Still a lot of big names here. Brian Reynolds seems like a lock to go to the Cubs, and then everything else seems to be kind of mishy-moshy. Dylan Tate is still here, by the way. He's gotten an offer from the Giants, and ultimately he is going to accept that deal, so he's going to San Francisco. Zach Gallen is a Rocky. Kyle Tucker to the Pirates. Wow, look at Pittsburgh spending money. Jose Urquidy signs a big deal with the Twins, so the Astros now have lost Urquidy, Kyle Tucker, and Yordan Alvarez. So Houston gets a lot worse. They're still really good, but 2 of the 3 best teams in the AL just lost a huge piece of their core today, which is very good for us. Yoan Moncada has been traded to the Braves. It seems like the White Sox are kind of rebuilding now after losing Luis Robert. They get back Michael Harris, who's a really good young player. Going into the Rule 5 draft, I really wouldn't mind adding someone. We've lost a lot of relievers, and we haven't gotten any new ones because we have no money. So if there's somebody good in here, I'm not going to hesitate to pick them because I think it could be really good for us. Unfortunately, there are no good pitchers in here. The highest rated guy's like a 75 overall, and he's really old. So we're just going to skip this pick and hope that we can either make a trade or find someone within the organization who can hop into the bullpen. We did lose 2 players within the organization. Oinks Quackenbush got drafted by the Oakland Athletics, and then Jhonkensy Noel got drafted by the New York Yankees. So both of those players are no longer in our farm system, which is unfortunate. I do like both prospects. Quackenbush was one of our first international free agent signings, and Jhonkensy Noel has been here from the very start. But I don't really see either of those guys as long-term pieces. I didn't really want to put them on the 40-man roster, so I'm okay with letting those guys walk, and hopefully they do well on their new teams. So now we can simulate up to February pretty much with most of the crazy stuff done, but there's still a lot of moves to be made. Teoscar Hernandez has been traded to the Diamondbacks, so it looks like Toronto is starting to sell. Brian Reynolds does officially sign with the Cubs for 6 years and a lot of money. Jake Cronenworth signs with the Angels. Dustin May to the Brewers. Nico Horner to the Phillies. Brady Senior joins Dustin May in the Milwaukee rotation. There are still some pretty good players here. Luis Urias, Tim Anderson, amongst others. Dansby Swanson is here as well. We have $4.5 million, so I figured, why not give him an offer? He's probably going to say no, but it doesn't hurt. We might as well. So all the arbitration stuff comes in, and for the most part, those guys end up signing with the players. Nicky Lopez to the Brewers, Tim Anderson to the Braves. Dansby Swanson has also been signed as well. I figured it wasn't by us, but I look on our roster and look who it is. Dansby Swanson took the $4.5 million contract, so after all that, he's back this year, which I really wasn't expecting going into the day, but you know what? I'm happy we brought him back. So with that, the offense is literally the exact same, which is good because we have the best offense in baseball. The only small difference is that Josh Naylor is gone. As for the pitching, we add Dylan Cease. That's a huge addition, but we still need to figure out our 5th starter, and we only have 4 relievers here. So we kind of need another reliever. The problem with that is that we literally have no available money. We are in the red in terms of available budget, and thus we cannot make a trade. Even for players with even salaries, we can't make a move. There isn't anybody making more than $4 million who I'm willing to trade away right now. So because of that, we're going to need some of these young guys within the organization to really step up. Alex Vesia is going to have a bigger role. Guys like Humberto Guzman and R.D. McKay might get called up. Maybe some of these starting pitchers within the organization move up to the bullpen. So we're going to need all of these young guys to really step up. They're all going to have much bigger roles now in terms of the pitchers. And hopefully those guys can help stabilize the bullpen after the other guys in the bullpen last year completely collapsed, essentially. So with that, we're not going to make any moves because we can't. And that pretty much wraps up the offseason. Pretty uneventful for us. We lose some players like Ranger Suarez, Dylan Tate, Josh Naylor, amongst others, but we add Dylan Cease. We keep the offense intact, and it's up to these young pitchers to really step up. But other than that, we're pretty much running it back. We do have the second-ranked team in the entire game. The only team ahead of us is the Dodgers. Shocker. I don't really have a problem with us running it back because we won 111 games last year. We were the best team in baseball. However, the AL Central just got really strong. Some of these teams at the bottom are now starting to come for us at the top. The Tigers didn't make any big moves, but they won the wild card game last year and pushed us to 5 in the ALDS. The Royals added 2 MVP winners and an ace, so they're trying to win. Minnesota added Yordan Alvarez along with an ace. And then you had the White Sox, who appear to kind of be rebuilding. But 4 teams are really gunning for it in this division. Now, the Blue Jays and the Astros, on the other hand, got worse. They were the 2nd and 3rd best teams in the American League last year, which is obviously good news for us. That might mean we're going to see some different teams towards the top of those divisions. I think the Yankees are certainly the favorite in the American League East, but maybe we see a surprise team in that division or the AL West. So that'll wrap up the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.